Hey guys, do you want to see my knee? This is what it looks like now. It's also super swollen and the leg is really atrophied. Anyway, so this video is actually for senior sem, or really what we're moving into is capstone. So I have been making a lot of videos for senior lit and comp, but not so much for you folks in capstone. / senior sem. So I wanted to clarify some things and talk about sort of what direction we're going in, what we've been doing with different health themes over the last couple months with Miss Daly after you guys got all your college stuff submitted. And then I want to go over the first article I assigned with you. Sorry, it's hard to get comfortable. And I want to sort of model for you out loud how I'd like you guys to read the articles, how I'd like you to kind of think about it, and how I'd like you to record your response. So Miss Tyson, I'll give her this video and she can show it in class if she'd like. If she doesn't want to, or she has a different way to approach the information, that's totally fine too. That is up to her. By the way, I don't know if you guys know this, but Miss Tyson was an English teacher for a very long time, and she then got her 092, which is the, basically, it's sort of like a degree and a license all in one, and that's how you become an administrator. And she passed all her tests and she finished that up last year. So you are so lucky to have Miss Tyson, who is now has always been an excellent English teacher and is now qualified to be a really amazing administrator, meaning vice principal or principal. So please, when you see her, congratulate her on that, and also thank her for splitting her time between her assigned position, which is instructional coach, meaning she goes and talks to other teachers and gives them some guidance around instruction. So she's doing that job and she's in the classroom with you. So you guys really lucked out to have Miss Daly, who is another amazing English teacher who left the job, the profession, to pursue her art, but then came back to sub for you guys, and Miss Tyson. So I could not be more blessed and thankful for both of those amazing women for spending time in the classroom with you guys. And I hope you guys are grateful as well. All right, so senior seminar. The first 2.5 months of school was you guys working on your college applications, working on your college essays, and me helping you a little bit from afar, and you getting lots of help from people in school. At this point, over the last month and a half with Miss Daly, you guys have been transitioning into the content-driven part of senior sem. So for us, that content is related to healthcare, right? Because we're the nursing academy. Sorry, I'm watching myself. Maybe I should just turn that part off because I'm getting distracted by how bad my hair looks. All right, so because we're the nursing academy, we are doing a nursing-themed senior sem content part. So that means I wanted us to look at health from a really holistic perspective. So the word holistic, which I'm sure you're familiar with, means really looking at the whole picture. So although it's spelled Holistic, I think of it as being related to the word whole, WHOLE, because it really takes into account mind and emotions and body when we talk about health. So when we talk about holistic health, we're talking about health for the whole person, every part of the person, right? So you guys did a whole mini unit on mental health, and then you did a mini unit, and you guys talked about stress. Remember that? You talked about triggers and stress levels in your daily life. You kept a stress journal and you assessed what triggered you and why. And those were really, really cool to look at. You did a great job with those. And then you did a physical health unit with Miss Daly, and she talked to you a lot about exercise and nutrition. So what we know about physical health is that it has very little, or it doesn't have as much to do with what you look like, and more to do with how your body is healthy and balanced internally. So someone who doesn't necessarily look like the most athletic person in the world might be remarkably fit with regard to health because they have a healthy amount of balanced nutrition and their blood pressure is good and their cholesterol levels are good. So it's really not about the look, it's more about what's happening inside your body. So keep that in mind when you think about physical health. Okay, so now we're moving on to emotional health. And the first article I gave you is a blog post. So it's sort of an opinion piece. It's the UK, meaning England's version of Huffington Post. And we're going to look at that together today because although this is a blog post and it's kind of this person's opinion, I think it gives a really nice introduction to how mental health and emotional health are connected. And that is something that I want you guys to think about as you move forward. So the reason we took some time to look at all these different content pieces of health is because you guys are going to be developing your own ideas about something health related or medically themed for your capstone project, for your senior project. And we're going to be starting that when I come back. So I wanted to give you guys a very broad introduction to many different issues in healthcare. We're going to talk about equity and access next. But I really wanted to dig deep into the three components of health, which I believe are mental, emotional, and physical. So for emotional health, let's take a look at this blog post. Now, a quick note, when we get to our research section where you guys are identifying what you want to research, a blog post would not be an acceptable source. The reason for that is because, this one might be a little different because it's published in a commonly accepted publication, but anyone can write a blog post just like anyone can write an opinion piece. And while you can look through a piece like that for objective information, it's a little bit harder. So we'll talk about appropriate sources when I come back. But generally speaking, when you start your research, articles like the one that we're going to go over are a great way to start to form your own opinion. And once you form your opinion on a topic, that becomes your thesis statement. And then you do some harder research, meaning some more official documents that support your opinion, and that's how your project evolves, okay? All right, so for now, this is just our introduction to how emotional health relates to mental illness. I'm going to read with you guys the first two paragraphs. We're going to stop at how can we use our emotional health to improve our mental health, because that's just a list with in-depth description of ways to do that. And I'll let you guys dissect that on your own in class. But we're going to just read those first two introductory paragraphs. Speaking of emotional health, we are going to move on to a whole section on self-care. So start thinking about now some of the ways that you take care of yourself. So this is my cup of green tea and cranberry tea, which is a way that I feel a little healthier, and it's comforting. Hot tea is comforting. So that would qualify as self-care. Okay. What is emotional health and how does it relate to mental illness? The term mental health is, more often than not, used within the context of discussing mental illness rather than mental wellness. That's a really good point. We talk about mental health only when we're trying to identify a problem someone has. When do we talk about how we're doing, other than saying, hey, how are you today? Which no one's actually asking you to unburden yourself about your mental health, right? They're just making conversation. But what would it be like if we lived in a society in which we actually cared about how the people around us and ourselves were operating emotionally? Think about that. Think about how that might change our interactions with each other and with ourselves. With 1 in 6 adults and 1 in 10 children in the UK having mental health conditions at any given time, rising to 1 in 4 people over the course of their lifetime, it is unarguable that steps must be taken to improve access to mental health support and tackle stigma around poor mental health. All right, so this is written from the UK, so I don't know what the stats are for the United States, but we're not super dissimilar to them in a lot of ways, societally and politically right now, so I'm guessing that our stats are similar, which is not to say that there aren't major differences in the systemic nature of this country. There are, and we'll talk about that in Lit and Comp when we kind of tackle racism and so on. Okay, however, discussions around mental health should not only center around illness or when we're facing challenges. We also need to focus on skills and habits that are essential for supporting ongoing good mental health. I agree. We all know that we can promote good physical health through factors like exercise, diet, and sleep, helping to prevent illness and support wellness and recovery from after diagnosis of treatment. Note on that, although my ligament is still very loose and that hasn't healed properly, my bone healed really, really, really well. So well that you can't see the original break anymore in the x-rays, and I can only assume that has to do with nutrition and balancing out my nutrition, or trying to while I've been ill. Like, that's something I thought about and tried to do on purpose so that the bone would grow back properly. All right. The same goes for mental health. We can equip people with key social and emotional skills that have promotional and preventative effect on mental health, as well as having a supportive impact for those with existing mental health conditions. This set of malleable social and emotional competencies and beliefs is our emotional health, and includes, amongst others, our relationship skills, our self-beliefs, more commonly referred to as self-esteem or self-worth. We're going to talk about something called the locus of control later, and that relates to those things, and our self-regulation, or the strategies we use to manage our emotion. All right, so the next paragraph is the last one we're going to read together. And this is called, what's the difference between mental health and emotional health? Emotional health is often used interchangeably with mental health, but there are notable differences. First, emotional health relates specifically to social and emotional competencies, such as the ability to empathize or regulate emotions, whereas mental health also encompasses cognitive and neurological functioning, including things like memory and impulse control. Some mental health conditions, such as depression and anxiety, have a strong social and emotional basis, whereas others, such as dementia and autism, have more organic and neurological roots. I also just want, never mind, we'll save that point for later. While improving emotional health may have particular benefits for emotionally based disorders, emotional health support is beneficial for everyone, whether they have a mental health condition or not. So taking care of yourself, preventing emotional collapse or an emotional meltdown is really, really important. It's like exercise. It's like taking care of your body. We need to take care of our hearts and our emotional landscape the same. Second, unlike mental health, emotional health describes a specific collection of assets or social emotional skills which are associated a range of possible positive life outcomes. That's a strange sentence. I think there's a word missing, including reduced mental health problems. These components of emotional health aren't fixed or inherent, but can be worked on and improved through self-growth and targeted support. Okay, a couple things I want to say. One of the things I want you to do when you're filling out your response sheets is to identify some important words. So what was a word we saw multiple times in here that maybe we don't know? Malleable, I only saw once, but let's go over that too. So malleable means able to be changed. It means not fixed, not permanent. So feelings are malleable. They change often, right? Your grade is malleable. You can change that grade by doing extra credit and, coming to office hours or something, right? So something that's malleable is something that can be changed. Another word that they used, or the word they used most often, was competencies. So think of the word competent. If you're competent at something, you're able to do it well. So competencies are essentially skills. Well, they are skills. So when they're saying mental and emotional competencies, they're talking about mental and emotional skills for keeping ourselves healthy and balanced. All right, so as you're reading, I want you to do what I just did. Like, I want you to stop and think about things as you read, as they occur to you. I want you to identify the words you don't know and look them up, especially if, like, a word like competencies has been used several times. You need to know what that means because they're building a lot of information around a word. And if you don't know what that word means, that's a closed door for you. You're not going to understand the other things they're talking about. So that is one thing you have to do. A quick note for annotation skills. So far we've read a lot of fiction or personal essays, and so we've used a specific skill set for that is a little bit different for nonfiction. So for the rest of Capstone, and I'm going to give Ms. Tyson a sheet that has all this information, but for Capstone, from this point on, really, we're going to be reading so many nonfiction pieces that are a little bit more complex. that we're going to need to employ a different strategy. So just like your fiction annotation strategy, the first step you have to the first thing you have to do is identify the words you don't know and find their definitions. What I like to do is, if I have a printout, circle the word I don't know and replace it, or circle it and then right next to it, write the word I do know that's related to it. So competencies, I would circle that and then write skills. This is a really important thing to do because, as you know, as I'm sure I've talked to you guys about with the fiction strategy, that's how we acquire language. That's how we learn language. We connect it to something we do know. So rather than just objectively memorizing lists of words, which we also do because that's how we rapidly build our vocabulary, a way to really sort of internalize more words is to, as you see a word you don't know, look it up and make a connection or an association between a word you do know. That's a really, really powerful strategy that will help you in the rest of your life. It certainly has helped me. So that's the first step. The second step for our nonfiction is to summarize each section. So what I suggest when you're looking at long pieces is you're gonna chunk out the sections. So there might be small enough paragraphs that you can just do it paragraph by paragraph, but often in a lot of the stuff we're going to be doing for research, particularly peer-reviewed journal articles, which are so complex, like beyond college level, really, really hard, but we'll tackle that together. You're going to want to break down the sections into smaller sections. So break a section down into a smaller section, several smaller sections, and then you're going to summarize those small sections. After that, you are going to ask questions about what you just summarized. So we're not so concerned about the interpretation because there's not multiple ways usually to interpret nonfiction texts, not in the same way that there are in fiction. So in fiction, we can have a subjective discussion about the meaning of love we haven't really studied love much, but there's plenty of conversations or discussions we could have about the meaning of Dick Gregory's piece, Shame, right? But this piece, there's some discussion to be had, but really there's a whole collection of ideas that are based on facts. And so we're less interested in the interpretation and your own personal meaning, and we're more interested in possible questions you might have. So as I was reading that, I had lots of questions like, why do we still call mental illness illness, and why don't we call it a mental difference? Because maybe there are some things that aren't about illness, and does the word illness stigmatize people in a harmful way anyway? So that was a question I thought of while I was reading. That might be something I would write down in the margins and then think, you know what, maybe that's what I want to do my capstone on. I want to know how language informs our societal response to people who don't fit a mental norm. I don't know. I think that's a good topic if anyone wants to do it. And then the final step is, what was the final step? Oh, just underlining any important points. I think I jumbled those steps. So I think number 1 is identifying words. Number 2 is summarizing each section. Number 3 is underlining the main point of each section, what you identify as the main point. And then number 4 is asking questions that will lead you to more information. So those questions become important when we're trying to decide what we want to do for our capstone, okay? So as far as your kind of note catcher or the way that I'm going to assess that you've been doing this work, Ms. Tyson has the I don't want to call it a worksheet because I hate that term, but she has the page on which you will be collecting the information that you find in these texts. And so I'm going to pull that up right here so I'm not remembering it incorrectly. Sorry this is taking so long. I'm going to wrap it up really soon. Okay, here we go. All right, so first you're going to write your name, the title of the article. By the way, I'm going to put this on Google Docs and send her the link so that you guys can just fill out each page and send it to me as you do each article, so that we don't have to worry about you getting the paper copies to me. All right, so your name, the title of the article. 2 is the vocabulary and definition. So like I said, competencies, we write that down when we write the definition. And then 3, a brief summary of the article. Okay, so you're doing the annotation I just talked about on the article, but then this piece of paper captures the information so I can see that you did it essentially. But these pieces of paper will also become kind of the springboard for what you might do for your capstone project. So this is a way of collecting information to really get to know your ideas about things better so that you can know your topic, the topic you want to explore more. So a brief summary of the article. Okay, here's where it gets interesting. 4 is your interpretation of the article, so what you think it means and why that's important. And I know I said when we're reading, interpretation isn't my main thrust. I really am more interested in you identifying what the article is saying. But once we're done reading and once we've comprehended it, I do want you to have discussions about this. So what does this article mean to you? What did you think about it? I want you to capture that in very few words, but enough so that you can really make a point, what you think about the article, and then a partner, anyone at all near you, what they thought about the article. And what this is going to do is get you in a position where you're actually able to summarize verbally your thoughts about the article, which is going to be important for capstone because eventually when you choose a topic, develop a thesis, defend that thesis, and write our really intense papers, you're going to present on that. So you're going to need to start getting language and facility and comfort around sharing your ideas about health-related topics, okay? So this is the very first way to practice that. And then 5, an important question from the quotation from the article that shows what the article is about. This should support both your summary and your analysis. So for me in that article, I was really interested in the way that they showed a difference, the way the author showed a difference between mental health and emotional health. And I think that's what I would focus on. That's the lens I would see this article through. So that would be the interpretation I would have, that it's important to think of them as separate and to think of emotional health as being connected to mental health and being a part of maintenance of keeping yourself mentally and emotionally healthy, engaging in that emotional health. That's probably would be my takeaway. And then I would probably find that section that described the difference as the quotation that I'd put in number 5. So that's it. Pretty simple. Shouldn't take you a long time. I'm thinking that for the longer articles, we'll need 2 class periods, and the second class period will include your time to do this. So these articles in this section on emotional health will take you pretty much all the way up to my return, which is still 2-1. I saw the surgeon yesterday, and he was a little doubtful about me returning then, but basically I told him that I already told you I was, so I had to. So he agreed to that. So anyway, that's what you're doing right now. That's what I expect from each article. Finally, I just want to give you a heads up about capstone because I'm coming back later than the second semester starts, not a ton later, but enough later. I'm going to scale way back on capstone requirements. So in the past, we've done a 10-page paper, research paper, 7 formal sources, and they have to be approved. So that was generally, I think, about 4 peer-reviewed articles. That may not mean anything to you now, but that's one of the things we're going to learn. So don't worry about that, but that just means really hard articles generally. So 4 peer-reviewed articles and 3 other sources. I think I'm going to scale that back to probably 5 sources altogether. And I think I'm thinking, so I do a 7 to 10 page range because I have met students who were so efficient and concise with their writing that their essay did not have to be 10 pages. I've also met students that 7 was a huge stretch and it was as if they had written 20 pages. And so every student is different. And so because of that, I do work within a range instead of having, you must do 10 pages. Because if you're making up nonsense for the last 3, I'd rather have 7 good pages. Or if you're going to cry yourself to sleep because of 10 pages, we're not doing that, okay? So I think I'm going to change the range to 5 to 7 instead of 7 to 10. So we're looking at a 5 to 7 page paper. I'm going to push for you guys to do 7. Once I show you the format of the paper, which is APA style, you're going to understand that it's actually pretty easy to hit that page mark because it includes a title page and your annotated bibliography and all of that. So I'm going to push for 7 to 8 if you can. But I will accept 5. So 5 sources, 5 to 7 pages, and generally we've done a 20-minute presentation. And the way that I've pulled that off in the past, I don't know why I said pull it off, except it's always hard to schedule this and arrange for it. But I've gotten a sub for 3 days, and I've had students come and present to me and a panel, whoever is available to come. Ms. Tyson has watched several of them and helped grade. But I think we're going to do probably a 10-minute presentation instead. Okay, so so you guys are not dealing with the unknown anymore. That's where we're heading for Capstone. And I'm really excited to come back and talk to you about this and talk about the skills. I also do a section, so I treat this sort of as a research course, as a college level research course. One of my majors was psychology, and so I actually was a research assistant, and I love research. So it's a pleasure to teach this as that. However, research is really hard, and research vocabulary and research concepts and research, I mean, there's a lot of just basic stuff that I need to teach you before we can do really heavy duty research. So I'm probably going to pull that back a little bit too, because we don't have that much time. So usually there's several lessons on research and research terms and different kinds of research, and then like a really hard quiz, and then there's usually this really fun review for the quiz where I give you guys scenarios and you identify each scenario according to the research language. But we're probably not going to do that. I'm probably just going to give you guys the information, and then maybe we'll forgo the quiz because there are more important things to do, which is your research, which takes a really long time, and then the reading. So we got to do all the research, and then you do all your annotation and reading, and before that you have to write a proposal and get your thesis cleared. So Capstone's a big deal, but I understand that this is a unique year and a unique situation we're all in because of my leg, and for my emotional health and yours, I am definitely going to modify according to what works for us best. Okay? So I will see you very soon. I might be at the school soon if I can get a ride there. I'm still not driving because I don't feel, well, we can talk about trauma when I come back too. I don't feel entirely comfortable driving because of the accident yet, but I might be there soon trying to get prepared to come back and make copies. So I'll let you guys know when I'm coming so I can see you guys. All right, thank you for listening to this very long video, and the next one will be shorter, I promise. Bye.